Hi everyone, and welcome back. You have to forgive me, the sun's setting, so if the light goes a bit funny, that's why. This is a video talking about books I read in September. I read quite a few, I read 15. Again, some of the books are quite short, or books I finished in September, so it's, it sounds like a lot, but it's not that many in reality. Okay, so I'm going to be trying to be a bit faster this time. So the first book I finished was Arthur Conan Doyle's The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. So there were 4 Sherlock Holmes novels and then a series of short stories. So this is the first volume of the short stories. I haven't read the novels, so I'm going to go back and read all the novels in canon, so in the order, and then go through all the short stories. But I really enjoyed this, so that's why I bought the first novel, because it does, some of the short stories do reference it, and I really want to read it. I really enjoyed this, would definitely recommend Arthur Conan Doyle. I think he's just such a fun read. So yeah, that's him. The next book I read is a contemporary romance, which surprised me. It was my first contemporary romance ever. And it's this one by Megan Quinn. It's called The Highland Fling. It's quite a saucy romance. You get quite a bit of detail in the fun scenes, so if you're not 18 plus, maybe avoid this book. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. The main protagonist was really annoying. The main female protagonist was really annoying, but it gets really quite deep in the last third of the book. So I would recommend it. But yeah. I think my opinion's changed because I read some bad romances after this. But yeah, I recommend this. The Highland Fling by Megan Quinn. It takes place in the Scottish Highlands, if that's your thing. The next one, okay. Sorry, it's book rearranging. Okay, it was these small little Penguin Modern classics, the mint ones, the tiny ones. This is what I mean. So I might have finished 15 books, but some of them are this small. And this is Audre Lorde. The Master's tools will never dismantle the Master's house. And that's one of the essays. These are little collections of popular speeches or works that were done by prominent people. Audre Lorde is amazing. The way she writes makes me feel very empowered, and I haven't felt that in a very long time. So it's actually really nice to read her stuff because it actually empowers me and inspires me. And I would definitely recommend this as a primer on her, if you like, and her way of thinking, especially if you're into black feminist queer writing. I think you'll really like her. So Audre Lorde, The Master's tools will never dismantle the Master's house. The way that they did the text on this is probably really not friendly to dyslexic people. The text inside is fine, but the text on the front is really not good, but the book content is good. The next book I read was this. It's by Ovid, and it's called The Art of Love. It's the vintage edition, which is really lovely, vintage red spine. It's really beautiful. The artwork's lovely. The Art of Love is written in verse. It's a poem of 3 books of Ovid's advice on love. The first 2 books are written for men, and the 3rd book is written for women. This also includes extras. What are they? The Cures for Love, I think, yeah. The Cures for Love, and then feminine treatments for the face. Or treatments for the feminine face. Treatments for the feminine face. So if you want skincare advice from some 2,000-year-old dead Roman, if you're into classics, I'd recommend it. If not, maybe don't. If you want to delve into classics, go for it. But I don't know. It was okay, but I just don't feel like I necessarily got it enough. And some of the stuff he says about domestic violence against women being acceptable is just doesn't really chime with me. So, I don't find the poetry very, like, funny, because some of the notes, the person's clearly a professional on classics, but for me, who's someone who's not a pro, I was just kind of like, why is that significant? So maybe some of it was lost on me. But yeah, Ovid, The Art of Love. Then we have this collection of poems. Beautiful again. This is another Macmillan Collector's Library edition. And again, if you take off the dust jacket, you get this lovely fabric pattern book, hardback. The edges are gold and the inside is a tartan. I'm not sure if that is a clan tartan or just a general tartan pattern. Let me know if you do know. And it's the poems were selected by Gabby Morgan. It's called My Heart's in the Highlands, Classic Scottish Poems. I'm moving up into Scotland, so I thought this would be good because I quite like Scottish writing on nature, and I wanted to read more Scottish poetry, so yeah. And I've discovered that I really quite like Robert Louis Stevenson's poetry, so I might pick up his novel as well. See how I get on with that. But yeah, I really like this collection. I thought it was really beautiful. If you like Scotland, buy it. If you like poetry, buy it. It's got some in Gaelic, some in English, and some in Scots, so that's great. The next book is another contemporary romance. Beach read. Oh, everyone was talking about this, so I was like, you know what? Fine, I'll buy it. So I bought it and planned to read it in the summer next year, but read it in September anyway because I couldn't help myself. Beach Read is a book about two authors that are writing books who are in a rut and switch genres. So they each write a book in the other specialist genre. And then there's a kind of development of love along the way. You do get some sauciness in this as well. There is some saucy, spicy flavours going on, which I prefer in romance, I've come to find. But yeah, it's not as good as the Highland Fling in my opinion, but it was still enjoyable. So yeah, I, along with everybody else on the internet, would recommend it. It wasn't my favourite. Do what you will. The next was another one of these short books. It was Dark Days by James Baldwin. This is a kind of documentation of Baldwin's experiences on racial prejudice that he experienced in the US. So it's quite heavy. I love this quote they put on the first paper. It's, "Once a people arise, they never go away." I think James Baldwin, like Audre Lorde, like Chinua Achebe, are just really inspiring in the way they write. Same with Patricia Hill Collins. She's one of my favourite kind of contemporary black feminist writers. So James Baldwin, again, is quite insightful to read into the black male experience. He talks to white people in the book as well. So yeah, I'd definitely recommend this. Essential reading. Okay, yeah, and then next was this one. Chinua Achebe on Africa's Tarnished Name. This has a selection of his essays and talks, I think. Yeah, speeches that were given in different places. I've written here facts. Key read, I think, as well. They kind of talk about, is it literature? Literature from Africa and literature on Africa, and kind of talks about that because he's a novelist. Achebe is a novelist who I tend to get into. So yeah, Chinua Achebe, I would recommend it. Yeah, good read. What next? This I started ages ago but never finished. and then I started reading it again from the beginning. It's The Little Black Book, a toolkit for working women by Ortega Uwagba. This usually comes in pink. Mine's in a gold edition. I don't know why. But it's good for anyone who's looking to sort of kickstart a business or just want kind of career tips and ways to deal with your career life. I'm coming into my career life, so I think it was a good read before I started on that journey. Yeah, and it has like good resource references, maybe a bit outdated now because the pandemic may have changed who's in business and who isn't, but I still think it's got a lot of good advice in it, and I would recommend it. And it's written by a black woman, so we love that. Black women in business. We want to support it anyway. The next one I read, I ordered this from Amazon, but it was damaged, and then I was going to send it back to them, but they said I didn't need to because it was damaged, so I read it. But okay, let's just talk about contemporary romances. These look the same. The only difference is the author is in blue here, the author is in red there, and the title is in red here, and the title is in blue there. And the plots of these books, it's like women who experience trauma. Right, so this one is a woman who experiences trauma, goes to live in a cottage in Cambridgeshire, and then finds love along the way, blah, 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 with her dog. This one is a woman who experiences trauma and then buys a guest house in Scotland, finds a dog, and experiences love along the way. It's the same bloody story. It's the same trauma as well. It was very bizarre. They're different writers, different authors, different publishing houses, but somehow have extremely similar plots. I don't know. This one, though, I feel it got such good reviews online. I looked up, it's like 4 stars. For me, it was like a 2. I don't usually rate books because I don't really like doing that. Like ranking them, I don't really like that. But against this, which is so similar, it was just impossible not to. I feel like this was just not written in a way that I enjoyed personally. Oh, sorry, I didn't even say. This is Hope and Happiness in Bluebell Wood, and it's by Ali McNamara. This has such good reviews online. It might really just be me, but it just wasn't for me. I just found it kind of... you know? That said, it does focus on a woman healing herself who's in her 40s. And I really appreciate that because usually it's like contemporary romances focus on younger women and there's not much representation of older women, even though being in your 40s isn't old. But I appreciate that it was a woman in her 40s. I really like that. I just feel like, I don't know, I just felt kind of... I don't know. Maybe if I was older, I wouldn't feel that way. I guess I'll talk about this one next then. As I said, woman, trauma, goes to Scotland to do up a guest house. The reason I wanted to buy this was because the Christmas version is coming out soon, and I want to buy that and read it over winter. And I think this one was written in a way that was more enjoyable for me compared to the other one, so I think that I will buy the winter version, which is, like, I presume a continuation of the series, this story, continuation of this story. They're not spicy. If you want spice, they're not for you. This focuses on a woman in her early 30s as well, so it's not like women in their 20s going off and finding themselves. So this is, again, a woman in their 30s. Not exactly like representation of older women, because women in their 30s are still, to me, like young women. She has a moody neighbour who's not very nice to her, but then they fall in love, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this is The Guest House at Lobster Bay by Annie Robertson. Need to remember that. Okay, so let's introduce this one. This is The Veiled Woman by Anais Nin. This is a collection of Anais Nin's work. Anais Nin was an erotic writer. I think she was, French, American, Cuban. So yeah, she just wrote erotic. That's another thing I liked about the Audre Lorde book, was that she talked about the difference between the sexual and the erotic and how they're not inherently the same thing. So this is erotica. So don't read it if you're like a fetus. But I don't know, like it all just kind of didn't do it for me. And it's such a shame because I really wanted to enjoy some of Anais Nin's books. I will buy a book to see if I prefer it in a longer novel form, but in the short form, I don't know, it just felt like it was a lot of really intense sexual imagery really fast and there was no breaks. So it kind of just, I feel like that kind of sexual intense building only works if there's breathing spaces in between, and this didn't have any of that. So it was just a lot. Like, it was just a lot packed into one tiny 50-page situation. So yeah, maybe take breaks, like long breaks between each story if you read this. It was quite intense. The next one, oh my gosh. This is the funniest book I've read all year. Absolutely cracked me up. It's called Clanlands, and it's by Sam Hewen and Graham McTavish. If you recognise their names and their faces, the reason why is because they were actors on Outlander, the show. This was Jamie Fraser and Dougal Mackenzie, I think. I've watched a bit of Outlander, but I haven't really I dropped off. So I might watch it again, but the sex scenes were just a bit egregious, okay, we get it. But this book is literally a documentation of their romp throughout, Scotland, and them experiencing hilarious just challenges, near-death experiences, good whiskey, and they do include some good historical stories about Scotland, which I really appreciate. And they also include parts that are quite emotional for them as Scots, and they are important. I think they're important to know about, especially if you're English as well, because they do address battles between the Highlanders and the English. So I think it's important in that sense, but it's also so funny. If you need a book that's going to make you almost pee because you're laughing so hard, buy this book. It's so hilarious. Sam does bully Graham a lot, so maybe he needs to chill out, but it's a really good book and I would recommend it so much if you just need a cracking thing to laugh about. The final book, second to last book I read was this one. It's called How to Get Over a Boy, and it's by Chidera Egeru. Excuse me, Egerue. I don't think this was the book for me. I think I wanted something that was more like a discussion of the experiencing of breaking up and the different ways that looks like, and how to nurture those feelings and whatever, come out of the other side. This was kind of, at some points it made points about patriarchy and how it makes women feel guilty in certain situations and for leaving certain situations and how that drags out into your life and things like that. So it is important, I guess, if you come out of a first relationship or something, maybe it's good if you haven't thought about the ways that patriarchy can kind of get involved in relationship dynamics. This might be a good one for you. The only thing I'd say is that I feel like maybe this book is for people who have broken up with men who were not very respectful of them, or who talked down to them, just weren't respectful, didn't champion their partner. Because a lot of the time, the way that she writes is she's mad at men, and maybe she has, every reason to be. But it's not always the case that you break up because a man did you wrong. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. And I feel like that wasn't really catered for in this. So, yeah. The other thing I'd say is I don't think it's necessarily about content. It's more about aesthetics. And that kind of bothered me a bit. And I'll justify why I think that. I said a book that focuses perhaps primarily on aesthetics and platitudes rather than saying anything, ? So for example, if I show you a page, this one, it's written across a double spread, but the letters, like, it's really aesthetic, but the letters are like in the creases. So if you have problems reading, or like maybe it's not your first language, or you can read it, it's just quite awkward and you have to proper bend the book back and you still can't see the letters even if you do that. So I think maybe some parts were just more focused on aesthetics and sounding like you're being inspiring rather than actually saying much. Not that I think it's a bad book, it's just not my thing. And another reason why is because it's quite, okay, so if you're colourblind, this will be fine. This will be okay. This is a nightmare. I don't understand how you expect colourblind people to be able to read that, because it's light pink on hot pink. So this is why I think it's just done to look nice rather than actually be accessible for people, which is odd because she kind of talks about, I don't know, just like feminism and allyship between women, and I don't know, just for disabled women or men who might be reading this, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. So sometimes parts of this book I'm just kind of like, was it really written to say stuff, or was it written so you could rant and try and make it look nice, but actually is kind of impractical to read? I don't know. If you feel like it would help you, go for it. If you've just gone through a breakup. If you've gone through a breakup where the lad was lovely and you just mutually decided to end it because it wasn't working out for you, I don't think you should. I don't think you need it. I think you'll be fine. And the last thing I'll end with, because that's a bit negative, is on one of my favourite poets of all time, Kai Miller. I'm working backwards chronologically through his poetry collections. I started with A Cartographer Tries to Map A Way to Zion. Now I'm reading this one, which is A Light Song of Lights, which is his second collection, and then his first is There Is an Anger That Moves. This one is about like the singer man who, it's divided in two parts, the daytime and the nighttime, and the singer man kind of talks you through where songs of light come into dark parts of life. I just love the way he writes. He writes his poems like they're all part of one story, and it just works really well. I love Kai Miller. He's a Caribbean poet. He was born in Jamaica. He studied in Jamaica and then in the UK, in Scotland, I believe. And I really love his poetry. It really is just really touching. I'd recommend this. I recommend all his poetry. He's amazing. So that's it for what I read in September. Yeah. Oh, I think it was 15 or 16 things. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Next video will be a book haul. I'll probably be wearing the same outfit because I'm going to do it now. Since I have the energy to film. And yeah, thanks for watching.